All right, I'm going to ask a version of the question you and I talked about the other day, Deo. All right, so I told Deo I was afraid to ask a question, but he told me to ask it, so
Please do.
I'm gonna trust. Um, so when you watch in the media and you see all the different issues coming up, be it Black Lives Matter, or the women's movement that's coming up, or the pro-life, pro-choice things, so many of them are flaring up, and my daughter and I are going to rallies about them, and all the different movements, and it becomes very easy to and I can speak as a woman, a marginalized group. It becomes very easy to blame the position you're in or the struggles you're having on being in that marginalized group. I'm working on a project that's very, very difficult, and it becomes sometimes easy to say that the challenges I'm having are because I'm fighting the old boys network or because of whatever else. But the question I have is, at what point do we stop blaming our marginalization? Do we stop using the excuses and take responsibility and move past it? Because whether it's I as a woman, or whether it's people of African descent, or people, Black people, or people who are Muslim, or whatever the group is that are fighting the very real struggles that I hope you guys see in my heart, I feel so passionately, such compassion for. But at the same time, when it becomes a fight of martyrdom and a fight of victimdom, I think it loses its power. And I want to know, at what point how do we take responsibility for it as ourselves so that we can become equal?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. I'll actually start. I will start by answering it first from my perspective. Most of the time, the groups that are marginalized or are oppressed, or they feel like the system doesn't work for them, they know the struggle that they're facing within themselves, right? They know that the struggles that they're facing within their communities. But it still doesn't justify what's happening outside of their control, that they need to continue to talk about it. So you hear this a lot in the media, and I'll speak for Black leaders, a lot of the Black leaders that are out there that talk about Black Lives Matter movement, they say, we do know that we have conflict and trouble within our communities. So when you talk about places like Chicago, anybody that talks about Black Lives Matter that I've seen, they say, we know that Black on Black killing is hurting our communities. It's holding us back. But at the same time, we can't measure that and say, oh, because we are killing each other, it makes it okay for the other groups to continue to oppress us. So I feel like it's two things that's happening parallelly, right? At the same time, the measurement of the system has nothing to do with the oppression that's happening within itself. So if my household is completely chaotic and nothing is moving forward, but at the same time, when I get out of my house, my street is also chaotic and it's crazy, does it mean that I shut up because my own household is completely chaotic and crazy? That the outside factors that has nothing to do with my house, when I step out of my house, is still oppressing me? Does that mean that I can't talk about it? So I feel like there's two parts of that. And I think there's no one solution to fix those two problems. And there's also, you have to continue to separate it, but you also have to identify where the touch points are. So you look at what are the critical things that's holding you back based on your own culture, right? The conflict that's happening within your own environment. But then at the same time, you look out and say, what are the factors that are holding you back from moving forward that's outside of your culture. So in terms of the black communities in America, I have joined that category because I am black and I was born in Africa and I moved here, and so therefore I fall under that category. But my family did not experience, if I am 11th generation, if my family came to this country as slaves, whatever that was passed on genetically based on the oppression that happened over the years, whatever that's happened over the years that continue to suppress me, that's the root of where the disconnect is. But for me as an African, I came here with my own baggage that continues to influence my ability to move forward or not. But it does not mean that I look at other black folks that are complaining about certain stuff that they've been complaining on forever, and for me to say, oh man, you guys been complaining about this forever. Because those factors still matters to them. It still matters to them. And because the system has never addressed it, it's still the after effect of what you see today. So when you look at when was the golden age for African Americans in America? 1960, right? Why? We're given the right to vote. 1960s? Prior to that, the first installment of Africans was 1700. So you're telling me from 1700 all the way to 1960, even during Lincoln's time, we can talk about the 1800s, you know, we were considered humans, right? We were considered not a property of someone else. But genetically, the oppression that was created to suppress people, to not give you a voice, that was passed on for generation over generation over generation. And when they finally got the voice to speak, the system that was created was also put in place for them to not rise because people were scared of what would happen if they rised. But over the years, people continue to gain momentum, gain momentum, gain momentum. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because the conditions are better now than the way that they were in the past, that it makes it okay for it doesn't make it all right for someone to complain about it. And I heard someone talk about mental illness yesterday, and it really struck me because we don't talk about the genetic effect that oppression has caused in the black community for years over years.